What about the risk of will AI lead to crippling inequality? Because we're kind of saying everybody's life will become better. Is it possible that the rich get richer here?
Yeah. So this actually ironically goes back to Marxism. So, because this was the core claim of Marxism, right? Basically, was that the owners of capital would basically own the means of production, and then over time they would basically accumulate all the wealth. The workers would be paying in, and getting nothing in return because they wouldn't be needed anymore, right? Marx was very worried about what he called mechanization, or what later became known as automation, and that the workers would be immiserated, and the capitalists would end up with all. And so this was one of the core principles of Marxism. Of course, it turned out to be wrong about every previous wave of technology. The reason it turned out to be wrong about every previous wave of technology is that the way that the self-interested owner of the machines makes the most money is by providing the production capability in the form of products and services to the most people, the most customers as possible, right? The largest, and this is one of those funny things where every CEO knows this intuitively, and yet it's like hard to explain from the outside. The way you make the most money in any business is by selling to the largest market you can possibly get to. The largest market you can possibly get to is everybody on the planet. And so every large company does is everything that it can to drive down prices, to be able to get volumes up, to be able to get to everybody on the planet. And that happened with everything from electricity. It happened with telephones. It happened with radio. It happened with automobiles. It happened with smartphones. It happened with PCs. It happened with the internet. It happened with mobile broadband. It's happened, by the way, with Coca-Cola. It's happened with basically every industrially produced, good or service. You want to drive it to the largest possible market. And then as proof of that, it's already happened, right? Which is the early adopters of like ChatGPT and Bing are not like, Exxon and Boeing. They're, your uncle and your nephew, right? It's just like it's either freely available online or it's available for $20 a month or something. But these things this technology went mass market immediately. And so look, the owners of the means of production, whoever does this, as I mentioned, these $1 trillion questions, there are people who are going to get really rich doing this, producing these things, but they're going to get really rich by taking this technology to the broadest possible market.
So yes, they'll get rich, but they'll get rich having a huge positive impact on.
Yeah, making the technology available to everybody.
Yeah,
right. And again, smartphones, same thing. There's this amazing kind of twist in business history, which is you cannot spend $10,000 on a smartphone. Right. You can't spend $100,000. You can't spend $1 million. Like I would buy the $1 million smartphone. Like I'm signed up for it. Like if it's like, suppose $1 million smartphone was like much better than the $1,000 smartphone, like I'm there to buy it. It doesn't exist. Why doesn't it exist? Apple makes so much more money driving the price further down from $1,000 than they would trying to harvest. Right. And so it's just this repeating pattern you see over and over again, where and what's great about it is you do not need to rely on anybody's enlightened, right, generosity to do this. You just need to rely on capitalist self-interest.
What about AI taking our jobs?
Yeah, so very, very similar thing here. There's a core fallacy, which again was very common in Marxism, which is what's called the lump of labor fallacy. Mm-hmm. And this is sort of the fallacy that there's only a fixed amount of work to be done in the world, and it's all being done today by people, and then if machines do it, there's no other work to be done by people. And that's just a completely backwards view on how the economy develops and grows. Because what happens is not, in fact, that. What happens is the introduction of technology into production process causes prices to fall. As prices fall, consumers have more spending power. As consumers have more spending power, they create new demand. That new demand then causes capital and labor to form into new enterprises to satisfy new wants and needs. And the result is more jobs at higher wages.
So new wants and needs. The worry is that the creation of new wants and needs at a rapid rate will mean there's a lot of turnover in jobs. So people will lose jobs. Just the actual experience of losing a job and having to learn new things and new skills is painful for the individual.
Well, two things. One is that new jobs are often much better. So this actually came up that there was this panic about a decade ago and all the truck drivers are going to lose their jobs, right? And number one, that didn't happen because we haven't figured out a way to actually finish that yet. But the other thing was like truck driver, like I grew up in a town that was basically consisted of a truck stop, right? And I knew a lot of truck drivers, and like truck drivers live a decade shorter than everybody else. Yeah. Like it's actually like a very dangerous, like they get like literally they have like higher rates of skin cancer, and on the left side of their body from being in the sun all the time, the vibration of being in the truck is actually very damaging to your physiology.
And there's actually perhaps partially because of that reason, there's a shortage.
Yeah.
Of people who want to be truck drivers.
Yeah, like it's not like the question always you want to ask somebody like that is, do you want, do you want your kid to be doing this job? And like most of them will tell you no. Like I want my kid to be sitting in a cubicle somewhere, like where they don't have this, like where they don't die 10 years earlier. And so the new jobs, number one, the new jobs are often better, but you don't get the new jobs until you go through the change. And then to your point, the training thing, it's always the issue is can people adapt? And again, here you need to imagine living in a world in which everybody has the AI assistant capability, right, to be able to pick up new skills much more quickly and be able to have be able to have a machine to work with to augment their skills.
It's still going to be painful, but that's the process of life.
It's painful for some people. I mean, there's no question it's painful for some people, and yes, it's not. Again, I'm not a utopian on this, and it's not like it's positive for everybody in the moment, but it has been overwhelmingly positive for 300 years. I mean, look, the concern here, this concern has played out for literally centuries, and this is the sort of Luddite, the story of the Luddites. That you may remember there was a panic in the 2000s around outsourcing was going to take all the jobs. There was a panic in the 2010s that robots were going to take all the jobs. In 2019, before COVID, we had more jobs at higher wages, both in the country and in the world, than at any point in human history. Mm-hmm. And so the overwhelming evidence is that the net gain here is just wildly positive. And most people overwhelmingly come out the other side being huge beneficiaries of this.